Great to see you guys. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sara Kooperman. I'm the CEO of SCW Fitness, and I'm really for some reason I was muted. That's kind of strange. Hi, I'm Sara Kooperman, and I'm the CEO of SCW. Yeah, SCW. And I'm here with Bill McBride and with Billy Polson. So I feel like I'm I don't know, what is that? The rose between two bills? I have no idea. Whatever. But this is a very interesting topic. And
you could be the law. You know, I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill.
Oh man,
you know,
that's going way back.
Yeah, the old Kid Rock on, you know, so you can be like the law.
Excellent.
That'll work. That'll work. But it's really kind of cool. We're here for a webinar on vaccination policies in fitness facilities. And we have well over 100 people registered for the webinar. But most of our participants are typically watching recordings. So we're going to try to keep our language under control. We'll see if we can control ourselves. And we'll make sure everything is recorded, and we'll make sure that it is available. What I'd like you all to do is move your mouse, go to the bottom of your screen. You're going to see the green screen share button. Go to the left, please. Click on the chat box. Oh, I love this. People are already signing in. Hello from Chicago. Please tell me where you are from. And we'd love to know where you're from. And we want to know if you have any questions. So I always open the chat box because the people who show up, this is your webinar. We have 45 minutes. We're going to fly through this. Billy Polson is a 3-time fitness entrepreneur, an international presenter, and a consultant for pioneering training and boutique gym owners worldwide. He founded, now I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly. Can you pronounce it, Billy, for me?
For sure. Diacati
Fitness, which was awarded San Francisco's top trainers gym for 14 years. He has a consulting company, the Business Movement. He's helped thousands of business owners. So we're really excited to have him on this webinar. And then we have my good friend, Bill McBride, who's also on Talks and Takes with me. So we're going to try not to disagree too much. And he's a health club industry veteran with over 25 years of experience managing all aspects of commercial, medical, residential, corporate centers. He co-founded Active Wellness, and he's the owner of BMC3, a health club consultancy business. He's served.
You really still have to read this? You don't have
to read it. People don't know you. They barely like you, Bill. I have to read this.
We should shorten that up.
He's on the advisory. Oh my gosh. Okay,
let's just go.
He's on a bunch of advisory committees with IHRSA. He did our keynote business lecture for our Health and Fitness Business Summit here in Chicago. Billy was one of our featured presenters at Midwest Mania. It was very exciting, a wonderful conference. So we're going to start with the ultimate question. Do we require our staff to be vaccinated? And I'm going to start with you, Mr. McBride.
Oh, great. Yes and no. We do in certain locations that are geographically mandated, and we recommend everyone that works for us to be vaccinated. And we're preparing for a time that we expect very shortly where it is mandated across the board. And so we are following a high degree of recommendation and following what the local laws and ordinances are, and taking that route and maintaining our safety protocols along the way with masks and social distancing and cleaning and all that kind of stuff. So, but I expect that it's going to go down this path, that everybody will be required to be vaccinated. And if you are not vaccinated, for whatever reason, exemptions or medical or whatever, my expectation is that you will be required to get tested every week. But currently, I don't know of any mandates on testing if you're not vaccinated. but there are certain mandates on vaccinations with exemptions allowed, and that requires a self-assessment and reporting and a medical clearance that you are exempt based on this, that, and the other. And so, but New York and Illinois and some of our jurisdictions, have very specific things. And as Billy knows, in the California market, that's a whole nother ball of wax that we're dealing with. So there's my weird answer.
Well, it's not such a weird answer. I mean, I can't disagree with you, Bill.
Oh my God.
I know, but we have to legally follow local regulations. There's 3,200 different districts in the United States, and they can all mandate their own individual laws. There's been no federal mandate at this point. We can recommend we follow the CDC guidelines, but we have to require that we follow local guidelines. So if they require masks indoors, like Illinois does, we require it. I'm going to jump right into a question.
Let me just say some of that, because recently Biden gave a directive, right, for certain categories, federal workers, so on and so on. So the OSHA's ETS is they're working on responding to Biden's directive with how OSHA is going to handle that. So there's a couple things. There's where it is today, and there's where it's going to be tomorrow. All right. And so preparing yourself with employee communications, documentation, self-assessments, approvals from doctors for exceptions, member communications. I mean, you need to be preparing not just for today, but for the changes that are going to happen potentially. And there will be changes somewhere. So this is kind of one of those things where don't get caught up in, oh, today they're requiring this, tomorrow they're requiring that. You need to be thinking through, this is going to be continuously evolving, in my opinion.
It is.
And just to add on to
Billy,
that,
please go ahead.
For sure, that same type of preparation, I would say, go ahead and start preparing your membership. Go ahead and start educating them on what you're seeing, what trends are happening. And a lot of that education can come from your brand and your vision and your kind of soul of how you're wanting the club to run. But at the same time, just presenting unbiased research from other areas from around the country, from other facilities or other industries, so that your clients are slowly seeing where this is going as well. You need to be bringing them along with you in this process.
And I think it's real interesting what Carolyn actually typed in. And she wrote, so who has been actually actively checking vax cards at the front desk or at the gyms? How is that going? Have you lost business due to this mandate? What's the feedback from the members who have to show their cards to get in? And it's like, that's a whole webinar. Your comments are a whole webinar in and of itself. But the first thing I think of is, we at Midwest Mania, we required vaccination cards or people could show a negative COVID test. But my staff, honestly, my front desk staff was freaking out because they are not the vaccination police. So that's what I made sure that they felt comfortable at. And I felt like the convention for us was in Rosemont, Illinois. And Rosemont has a mandate that you have to wear a mask indoor in every facility. So I'm at the hotel and we were all wearing masks walking through the hallways. But when people got into the rooms, individuals were taking their masks off. Now we had put dots on the floor that were 8 feet apart. So if somebody moved the wrong direction, they wouldn't, breathe on somebody else. But in Rosemont, it is the law. But just about 3 weeks ago, I went to see Blake Shelton. And of course, Gwen Stefani showed up as well. Fabulous concert in Rosemont, Illinois. I know this, trust me, I'm getting to the point, Billy. But in Rosemont, Illinois, nobody, over 20,000 people in that amphitheater, nobody was wearing masks. Craziness. So are people really enforcing mask mandates? Are they enforcing vaccination cards? Now, when I went to see Bruce Springsteen, I had to show my vaccination card. And when everybody was showing it on their phone, on their phone, on their phone. When I got back into my seat and I looked at my vaccination card, I had the wrong vaccination card photographed. I only had the vaccination card that showed one of my Moderna shots. And I forgot to take the second photo with the 2 shots documented. Boom, they let me in. So Carolyn, I'm reading your question and I'm going, oh my gosh, how are we really going to enforce this? So Bill, we need to, Billy, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just start just because we have had the vaccination requirement for, I think we're coming on 2 months now, the vaccination and masks we've had in San Francisco. So I'm coming from an extremely, obviously, very liberal community. So in the beginning, the vaccination cards, people were psyched to show them. They were excited to have it as a requirement in the facility because it was boosting their confidence and feeling safe. Now, again, that is in a very liberal San Francisco community that folks are that way. Like we still have folks that are like, yeah, walking their dogs by themselves with masks on down the street. So you have to be very aware of your community and your clients and their feelings on this in order to really, again, make smart decisions around what is going to keep you open for business, honestly, and keep your memberships active while at the same time keeping folks safe. And there will definitely be lots of places in the country that it would be a split 50-50 down the middle in most facilities of whether or not you required a vaccination. Half your members would maybe leave. So definitely we've had the fortune to follow our local government. And as Sarah said, definitely following them has made that easier for us. But it's going to be such a unique environment in every single community.
And I know Bill, if someone to call it Billy, you're Billy and Bill, you had interesting experiences where you actually, I think, had someone get into a fist fight in a gym.
Yeah, so there's a lot of dialogue going on the chat. So I want to address some of that's relevant to what Billy and you were saying last. Back to Carolyn's point, in New York, we are requiring patrons to be vaccinated per the mandate. And it's going okay. It's an urban market, and it's going fine. There are exemptions. If you don't want to be vaccinated based on a medical thing, you get the doctor's signature and off you go. So we're mandating it where it's required at this point, not where it's not required. The other point is, yeah, it is personal choice, and there's a question there, Sarah, legally, can you mandate these kinds of things? And I'm going to step on your lawyer's shoes, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can't, because you're a private business and you're not discriminating based on any of the protected classes of discrimination. You're making a business decision categorically against a certain situation that's recommended by the federal government. So I think businesses can make this choice. It may be unpopular. It may alienate some of their membership base, but I think they have every legal right to make that choice. Sarah, you want to opine about that?
Yes, definitely. It is completely legal for a business to require vaccination, except they have to make the exceptions that if there's a medical condition or a religious choice, but they have to document that it is a real religious choice. That's the only thing they do need to document. And it's somewhat difficult because there's only a little bit of a gray area when somebody's has had COVID and they are vaccinated, they've waited that 10 days, and then they're going to come back to work, but they have to show a negative PCR test. And the PCR test may show positive for several weeks, even though they're over COVID, which is interesting. It depends on the sensitivity of the PCR test and the individuals administering it. So there's been a little bit discussion about that, which is actually relatively fascinating in a stupid kind of minute way. But the bottom line is it's legal to do. Many businesses are doing it. I think Billy brought up the question of the businesses that were in the health club industry that were requiring it. And I think, Bill, what you said was, we had talked about Equinox And SoulCycle, owned by the same company, were requiring vaccination of all their employees. And I just read that East Bank Club, as of October 1st, which was just a week ago, they required all their employees to be vaccinated. And I think I think you said, Bill, that this is going to happen. So how do we deal with it? How, if I have to require vaccination, do I have my front desk staff be the vaccination police? Who do I keep on speed dial to physically remove someone? How do I handle this situation? Any Bill?
Yeah.
Bill, I'll let you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, if it's mandated and it's accepted in a community, to Billy's point earlier, where are you doing business? You know, what's your consumer base? What's the market, temperature? How's the wind blowing? Is it 60%, mask or the best thing ever? I mean, vaccination is the best thing ever, and 40%, oh my God, what are you doing with freedoms? Or is it 99% mask or vaccinations are great, 1%? I don't agree with this. So some of that's going to depend where you are, but let's say you're in a vaccination friendly area where people think it's a good idea and you're mandated to do it, then I don't think the front desk is going to have much challenge, right? You show your membership card, you show your vaccination card, off you go. Now, if you're in an area where it's very contentious, I wouldn't put my front desk in that position. I'd have an MOD or manager, out there playing the heavy on that and backing up the front desk. So I think, again, it's going to be, what issue are you dealing with? Is this a common, simple check-in issue that's not getting much pushback, or is this a contentious issue, in which case you want a manager out there fielding the heat and protecting the front line?
Billy, what are your thoughts?
Just this is going to be a little bit of a sidetrack, but Bill or Sarah, have you seen a pre-vaccination requirement? Like if your area is not requiring that yet, but you do have maybe a split membership that some folks are comfortable and happy with it, some folks are not wanting it. Have you seen any clubs that have started to be creative in terms of having maybe specific hours of the day or areas of the club or classes, or dividing it up and being creative and like having vaccinated classes and unvaccinated required classes? Have you seen anyone do that? I'm just curious.
I have heard of that. I actually have heard of that. And unfortunately, the result of some of those things were it got very heated. Like, honestly, we're talking about vaccination here, and I have never seen such a fired up chat box, because this is so personal. Somebody wrote, which I have to say, honestly, I can't remember who it was, so somebody will probably jump in. They said, what about privacy laws? What about freedom of choice? And I gotta say, all right, yeah, I got vaccinated, but I gotta tell you, privacy, it's not the government or society's right to know what I'm doing with my body. And that's something that we have to look at. And you have to look at, is it going to affect others, et cetera, et cetera. We have to look at that. But speaking actually quite personally right now, my brother got tested for the BRCA gene, because both of my parents have had cancer, and he came out positive for the BRCA gene, which is the cancer gene, which means that he's predisposed to getting cancer. So they recommended to me that I go in and get tested, and my kids get tested. And I decided I'm not getting tested. And the reason I'm not getting tested is because I'm going to continue to do all the preventative things I need to, the colonoscopies, the breast exams, blah, everything I need to do. But I'm not going to go in to get tested, because then it's permanently on my record. And legally it says that you can't, an insurance company can't, get rid of you just because you test negative, test positive for the BRCA gene. But what happens if I stop my insurance policy and then I go to another insurance company and the law has been changed and I never can get insurance, because laws do change? So this is my body. It's my body. It is privacy. It is a freedom of choice if this is something I want to do. So I hear you know, I think about this in my brain, and Bill, go ahead,
Yeah,
get me out of this.
I mean,
Get me out of this.
Billy, to your question earlier, Blair McCaney was talking about having like a mask area and a non-mask area. When the mask mandates lifted. I don't know if he ever did that or not. I haven't heard of anybody doing a vaccination area and a non-vaccination area, but the more open space and more spread out equipment and mask area for people that are more at risk can be maybe a good idea. You know, if you've got a senior population and you want to carve out some senior training areas, and you know, maybe that's a good idea. I don't know. But I heard Blair was talking about that. I don't know if he did it at his clubs or not in Wenatchee, Washington.
There's small group training classes that are specifically requiring everyone to be vaccinated, and they're doing quite well, very well. And I have heard that in multiple locations.
I want to go back to the heat on the chat, which I love. I mean, this is probably the more most active chat we've had, Sarah, on one of these. This is not new. This is not different. When they told people you cannot smoke cigarettes on an airplane, guess what people did? Freaked out that their rights were being taken. Government's telling us what we can and can't do. And there was a similar backlash by that. When people were told you got to wear a seatbelt or you'll get a ticket and have to pay a fine, people freaked out. How dare you tell me to wear a seatbelt? Why are you telling me what to do with my body, my car, my driving habits? So this is not new. Anytime the government has taken a aggressive stance on safety for the population, there has been a pushback and a revolt and a angst about, oh no, another freedom, another right being encroached upon. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying it's just common and it's happened every single time. And so this is not an unusual situation. Motorcycle helmets, you know, some places mandate bicycle helmets. Some places don't. So, you know, this situation of, you know, where does the government cross the line in interfering with me versus protecting the populace for the betterment of all? And that is not a clear answer. And so, but this is not uncommon. And this has happened multiple times in our history with other issues. And so, you know, don't be freaking out that this is something that hasn't happened before, but it's probably a good idea for us to question whenever the government tries to mandate something for the populace. That's probably not a bad exercise to go through. But you know, at the end of the day, we got to look at how do we all live long, healthy lives and protect one another. And so, you know, I tend to go down the side of, you know, I voluntarily got vaccinated. I voluntarily vaccinated my kids. I'm glad I did. But you know, I also get where people come from with this freedom thing. So anyway, sorry to go on.
Interesting about this. Sorry, Billy, please go ahead.
You're good. I was gonna say that definitely leads into a little bit of what we spoke about before, that I do think the first step for all of us, which again, according to the chat, most of us have done, is doing some soul searching and really understanding our own personal philosophy on this and how we feel about it. But then as a business owner, you definitely have to go to a strategic hat in terms of making a decision that may not match your own personal beliefs of how you're going to then manage and operate your business in terms of this idea. As we said earlier, those may not always match, but to be clear on that, and maybe then sharing of that information to your community is an important part of being the leader and the, again, kind of the vibe of your brand, of being open and honest about who you are, and at the same time bringing together a community that may have a very diverse population of beliefs. I do think that's one of our responsibilities as a facility owner who's trying to, again, build a community of folks who are different and have different beliefs, but in a situation where you can keep them all safe, and in a situation where you stay true to your heart at the same time of keeping your doors open for folks.
Yeah, keeping our doors open is really important. I do like your analogy, or Bill, with the seat belts and the cigarettes, but the seat belts is something that goes on the outside of the body, not the inside. And cigarettes is something that that they're stopping you from putting something inside your body, just restricting some of the time or place where you can do this.
What's the
And
difference?
so I look at things also and I say,
what's the difference between the vaccinations that I have to get my kids to let them go to public school?
and that's what I was just about to bring up, and how we've eradicated some diseases like smallpox. Like, we don't even have to vaccinate our kids against smallpox anymore, because they required that vaccine nationally through the government, and it just basically got rid of the whole thing. And you don't have to get.
Well, I'm not making the analogy of cigarettes and seatbelts to the vaccine. I'm making an analogy of people's reaction to government interventions.
Okay, now I have a question. I do believe that there's a very strong likelihood that the government's going to step in and say everyone needs to get vaccinated, and make it such a strong imperative that we do this, that we need to do this for our businesses. So if we were to envision this requirement, what are some of the protocols we want to set in place to keep our gyms open? So how do we check for vaccination cards at the front desk? Do we have, I think the COVID testing is getting to be so incredibly sophisticated and fast. Everybody, I think, has seen those little Binox boxes where you can go in for $24, Walgreens, CVS, Target, Walmart, buy it. You get 2 tests, $12 each, $24 for the package of 2, five little swirls, little 6 drops, stick the Q-tip in, circle it 3 times, close it for 15 minutes, and you find out if you're pregnant or not. You find out if you have COVID. If it's 1 line, it's negative. If it's 2 lines, it's positive.
You can find out if you're pregnant and had COVID from the same test.
Yeah, that would have been useful in college. No, but you could, it shows those little lines up. Very simple, very easy. And I did it during the middle of mania, right before I went to the staff party, because I was nervous. I had, my throat was a little sore because I had been talking for 3 days straight, and I didn't want to get anybody sick. And I did the test. I was like, oh, cool, I'm negative. But I think these tests are going to become so quick and so accurate that I think that's going to happen. And I think we do need to empower our front desk with some type of training as how they check a vaccination card, what the 3 different types of cards look like in the United States, from Pfizer, from Moderna, and from Johnson & Johnson, and how are we going to enforce it?
Well, the cards, I think it definitely, one of the first things, go ahead, even if you haven't started requiring it, go ahead and look at your technology. Look at your data entry system and make sure that there is, if not an automated way, like for example, our clients we send them out a ping. When this first started, we sent out an email, load up your copy of your vaccination card here, and it'll go directly on the record. And it was all automated before they even walked in the door. So look at your technology and look at your data entry systems and make sure that there is something in place in order to be able to quickly and efficiently do this. For sure. Start now.
That's great. Bill?
What?
Okay, well, you're dealing with Ohio, okay? And apparently, as you shared before we turned the camera on, Ohio requires vaccinations, yes?
Employees.
Pardon me?
Employees.
For employees.
Yeah.
So how are you thinking of a rollout?
That's right. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's right. I've got a lot of states going on in my head, Sarah. But
you've got a lot of voices going on in your head, Bill.
I do have voices. Well. I have voices that say, but yes. So in one of our Illinois locations, we are requiring employees to be vaccinated, and if not, based on medical exemption, of course, and so, or whatever other exemptions are there in Illinois. Same thing with well, with New York, it's members as well. So those two, and then you got California. The most I hear about based on my book of business is California, Illinois, and New York. As far as various mandates that are going beyond what many other areas are doing at this point. But then Biden gave a directive recently, and then OSHA's redoing some of their expectations around whatever the federal government mandates, because if the federal government has mandated it for all federal employees, that goes into every state, with regard to transportation and military bases and so on and so on. So just being aware of what's happening, to Billy's earlier point, and having, okay, if it goes to every member being vaccinated, here's our playbook. If it goes to every staff member being vaccinated, here's what we're going to do. If it goes to some hybrid form of testing, if you're not vaccinated, but it's optional still, how am I going to get the test? And, how am I going to manage the test with the employees? And what if an employee doesn't want to be tested and doesn't want to be vaccinated and maybe doesn't want to wear a mask? What's the flow chart of things? And so I've got, 6 forms open up on my computer right now, so I can reference it during this webinar from our team, from Michelle Wong, my COO, and Meredith DePersia, who has been all over this as she runs our human resources department. And, there's self-reporting forms, there's member communications, there's employee communications, there's exemption forms to take to the doctor, exemption forms that need to be turned into the human resources. I mean, it's not just a matter of, writing it down on a piece of blank paper and going, okay, here's what we're going to do. Like, you got to really have your thought process in line, especially if it's mandated. Because again, if you can disagree or agree, but once it's mandated, if you don't comply, you're risking another set of exposures, being shut down, liability, whatever it may be. So, you got to think of this not only as compliance, but risk management. How are you managing the risk for your operations? How are you managing the risk for your employees and members? How are you complying, and how are you documenting that compliance and implementing that compliance?
I do like the way Billy said, you've got to look at your customer management system, and there's got to be a way for somehow the vaccination to transfer to your card. So if you show your iPhone or you swipe something, then it'll pop up that like a little green dot that says vaccinated, go on in. And if a red dot pops up, oh, do you have a PCR? Do you have one of your medical releases? Or maybe it's got a yellow dot, which means caution, just you need to recheck them. So that's something that could be.
I don't know of any member management software systems that are currently doing that. Billy,
no, not yet, but they'll have it, and somebody
but let's say they have
design it in a heartbeat.
Let's say they have it in 3 months. I mean, the roadmap for most member management software on product development isn't 2 weeks. So there's probably going to be there's probably going to be another retail solution that is government backed or government supported, that is a retail vaccination passport. Remember the passport ideas that everybody got upset about? So there's probably going to be something like that before you're going to see every one of them MMS systems in the health hub industry have product development on it.
Well, Bill, if you're using one of the nationally advertised, commercially accepted management systems, yes, it's going to take months and months. But for somebody like a business like mine, if functionally it's just adding a field, it literally is a matter of minutes. How you're administering it and tracking it, I think that's going to be the difficult part.
Yeah, I mean,
Billy, I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you again.
No, you're good. You're good. You're right on. You're totally fine. You're right on the money. Like that, we added the field. We started grabbing it. Again, the clients could send it in to us, or we could do it at the front check-in desk as they walked in the door. A very simple add-on to. We're just using. I don't know if you want me to say name brands. We're using Gym Master. We're using Gym Master, and it's been really a very easy add for us. If it's okay, I want to speak to someone's point in the chat. I think it was Cindy. And Cindy, like, again, I'm dealing from San Francisco. I'm in a city that has required the vaccination. and required masks for your exact question, because the vaccination wasn't necessarily controlling people getting sick or spreading the illness. And that's why they stacked on top of our vaccination requirements, the mask, right? So they were doing both. I will say, in my opinion, and I think this is kind of common knowledge, but you are right. The vaccination is not slowing or limiting the possibility of people spreading it and getting it. What it's doing is, as a whole, obviously trying to stop the pandemic in its trail. So in that way, it is very interesting here in San Francisco. We viewed the chess move by our mayor to require us to require vaccinations as this chess move towards, again, bringing about the end to the pandemic, that we were kind of the police officer in charge of doing that. Whether that's right or not, like, we all obviously want the end of this pandemic, but it was, as compared to what Sarah said earlier, it wasn't like it just came from the government. It literally was having to come from the small business, almost, that we were the middleman in that. So it has been a challenge that, of requiring vaccinations did feel like a push that we were doing the government's work of trying to get more people vaccinated. In the end, again, I support the idea of trying to end this dang thing. And if that means that we can help do that, and the law backed us up, it was helpful. But you're very true that without also requiring masks, it's still going to spread. It's just the idea that hopefully it's not going to kill people.
And there's something to be said with I'm doing what the government requires me to do as a private business versus I'm falling on my sword, pro or against vaccination. So I've always just been a firm believer in, do the right thing, but also, if the right thing is different for different people, how do you do the safest thing and the safest thing for your business? And the safest thing for your business is to make sure you're compliant with the law.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very well said, Bill, because we have to comply. We want to do something that's safe. I mean, and you're right, they're going crazy in the chat. And Carolyn wrote, the vaccination doesn't end this. Your symptoms might just be a little less. You can still get COVID. You can be hospitalized. Blah. She's right as well. The vaccine doesn't prevent you from getting COVID or spreading it. Now, as far as vaccinations discouraging or encouraging attendance, I think, Billy, you addressed it, that you've got to take the temperature of your local community and see how they feel about it. But
Definitely.
Sorry, go ahead.
I would say, and even again, as Bill has said, even if this hasn't come to your community yet, I would say now is the time. Hopefully most of us are talking to our staff, and most of us are even talking to our community and doing surveys and gauging the temperature already. But if you are not, immediately start doing that. It's going to help you make strategic decisions. It's going to kind of lay the groundwork for what may be coming and is likely coming our way. So go ahead and, again, be the leader in communicating and reaching out and surveying, and start doing that work now. Don't put that off, for sure.
Well, one thing we do require, Billy and Sarah, is we require all staff to be vaccinated 100% no matter what, if you're going to get on a plane for business with us. Okay.
Interesting.
So you don't have to get on a plane for business. You can delay the business if we'll send somebody else to one of your accounts, or, you can handle it virtually or whatever, but you cannot fly business purposes without being vaccinated. And why am I doing that? Why am I taking a hard line on that? Because if you get sick, because I sent you somewhere, I don't want that on my conscience. I don't want that on the organization's conscience. I don't want to have risk and exposure or liability, but less about liability, more of, I'm not going to send you somewhere where you could be in harm's way because you were not vaccinated and you didn't want to get vaccinated, and that was your choice. But if you're going to fly business with me right now, you got to have a vaccination. And if you don't want to fly, no harm, no foul. You're not going to be penalized. You still have your job and all that. You just can't go on a company trip right now, with that requirement. And so, but that's protecting the business asset, which is the employee, and your choice, but I've got to protect my my people and my company, right? And so, but to me, that's a different kind of thing because it's optional. You don't have to travel.
Right, especially now with Zoom and on demand and virtual training, et cetera. It is more optional than ever. There's also the concern, and I know there's a lot of business owners on here. If somebody gets sick when they're out of town and they're not vaccinated, they have the propensity or the possibility of really getting very, very ill. They're out of town. Who's going to pay for that extra hotel stay? Who's going to pay for that extra hospital stay? Now, I know that sounds kind of like terrible and mean and very businesslike, but it's financially a huge risk as well to your company. And yes, we do this, you can't travel unless you're vaccinated because it's better for the person and it's just better. But I think we have to look at the economic impact. I actually went to Scotland last month, kind of a long story, to visit a niece that was from Singapore that went home to visit her mom, and I flew to Scotland to see her, thinking that it would be easier. The huge risk is, especially if you go internationally, even if you're allowed to, is if you get COVID over there, you will continue to test positive for weeks on end, and which will severely delay your return home. So it's really impaired so much of the international travel. And I think, Bill, what you're saying is it's important to consider for even national, travel in the USA. So we've got these travel options and accommodations and things like this. I'm looking here, what else? Bill, I think there was another topic that was brought up. I'm not sure if it was confidential or what. I have to say that I really appreciate both of you coming on. This is a very hot topic. It's very, very personal. It's kind of uncomfortable to discuss because it's so polarizing, but it's been extremely valuable for everyone. So, Billy, do you want to give us one closing statement?
Just to back up what you said, Sarah, whenever I initially got the invite from you all, I initially was like, heck no, I'm not going to be on a vaccination panel. That sounds like a suicide mission. But we do have such an interesting kind of angle of viewing it from San Francisco. I mean, I will say our numbers are crazy low in terms of cases and hospitalizations. And we're at 75%, I think, vaccination, and we have 79 new cases a day in the entire city. So it has been a gut-wrenching few years of dealing with this, and this is just kind of the adding to the top of what is on our to-do list as business owners. I guess my final advice is, again, keep following your gut and your soul and your brand and your vision. But at the same time, our role is to bring, I really mean it, I believe this, I'm the San Francisco hippie. Our role is to bring folks together and build community. So anything that we can do to try and do that and be creative in thinking through ways to get through this, that's our job as business owners. Not necessarily to sit and just butt heads on it, but think outside the box and get creative. That's my best advice I have.
Thank you. And Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I've always believed, there's a lot of people that are polarized on this issue, and they won't listen to the other side on both sides. And so, I've always taught my team that when a member's not right, don't make them wrong, right? There are times when a member's not right, but when a member's not right, don't make them wrong. If you don't think somebody's right because they have the opposite perception that you do, don't make them wrong. Listen to where they're coming from, and we're, be compassionate about their feelings and their perspectives. And we're, none of us are perfect, and we see the world differently. And if we all saw the world exactly the same, it'd be a much more boring place. Definitely any webinar I'm on, Sara would be more than welcome, because we tend to do quite a bit. But have compassion for one another. Follow the rules with the business, do the right thing, and if you're not going to get vaccinated, be cognizant of that with regard to others. Your social distancing and your masking and your time around others, and especially those that are ill or infirm or elderly. Just everybody use common sense out there and be compassionate of one another.
I love it. Thank you, guys. Thank you both so much. I'm just going to show you real quickly. We've got Dallas Mania coming up November 5th through 7th. We've got a very strong business summit going on. Billy and Bill will both be there. I'll just share this with you guys. So I thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Sean Senejan, for running this webinar and trying to keep us under control. And thank you all for coming. And we hope to see you at Dallas or Boston. Okay.
Thanks, Sara. Thanks, Billy. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you too. Have a good one, everybody. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.